You don't know if you can trust them people to pay you when you've left the venue. Technically, there could be no evidence other than an advert. And who do you actually go to? I've got a blacklist book. So if anybody ever does me wrong in the music business, I write them in the book with their phone number, make sure that I never deal with them again.
I think there is an element of sticking to a minimum fee that you're willing to take.
Yeah.
Do you value yourself? Like, do you back yourself that much?
Yeah. It's not easy in them situations to have the balls to sort of go, well, I need my money, mate, because it can kick off, can't it?
If you really want to go down the legal battle, most of these pubs have got a brewery behind them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're absolute powerhouses.
Right, hello, welcome back to the One More Songcast. We're into part 2. We're talking all things payment today. We're covering the big topics.
Yeah, the awkward, the elephant in the room,
The
shall we
elephant
say.
in the room. It's not a nice way to talk about yourself, Lee.
Well, it's getting that stage if I don't start getting back to the gym, to be honest, mate.
To be fair, though, we've not eaten all day today, have we? So,
no, I'm glad I had those 2 bowls of Frosties this morning because one apparently wasn't enough. So off camera, you're just about to tell me you had a dream.
Yeah, so it was...
I have a dream.
I had a dream. No, so it was actually... I thought of it as we was in the last part. So Sadie Parker, shout out. I know she watches our TikToks and stuff. She... I was doing a gig for her in the proverbial dream, and she was dead used to me coming and doing gigs on my little speaker that I used to have, but I brought me new speakers to her house, and she was having a full meltdown going, no, it's too big for my house. No, you're not bringing those speakers in. I'm not paying you. Go and get your old speaker. And all this. And I'm just like, wake up in the next morning like, what the fuck was that all about?
Well, we're about to talk about that. Like, you know, is it right if you get a gig cancelled, if you turn up to a gig, do you demand payment actually?
Ooh, yeah, it's a really tricky one, isn't it? Oh, what? So what you're saying? If they cancel you when you get there,
or like if you've turned up to do the gig and they're like, oh, sorry, we meant to cancel you.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I don't actually ever think that's happened to me. I think it's only happened before the gig, like where they've messaged maybe on the Thursday before the Saturday or something.
Right.
No, I haven't gone, yeah, take the fee. I either break ties with them and put them on. Do you want to know something funny, actually? I've got a book, and I suppose, what do you call it, like blacklisted?
Yeah.
I've got a blacklist book. So if anybody ever does me wrong in the music business, I write them in the book with their phone number, make sure that I never deal with them again. So I've got a little list. It's only a small list, thankfully, but it's got a few contacts in there that I'll never deal with again because of certain ways they've treated me. And that is kind of when they've cancelled the night before or whatever. And instead of asking for payment, I usually just say to myself, I'll just never work with them again. Because I just feel like they're not going to pay you, are they? And then it's all that chasing and stuff.
I think the issue is like, as well, like, the only issue with that is if say it goes under new management and then you can't find out, like, you blocked them and all that.
That's happened to me, actually. Yeah, so I was meant to do a gig, and then I went to try and find their Facebook page like a couple of nights before so I could advertise it, and it's just nowhere to be seen. So I messaged a few people, what's going on at this pub? Oh, yeah, they're closed down, mate. I was like, all right, great. And then it's too late to get another gig then, isn't it? So
yeah, like, I have had it once where basically I was booked for a gig on the Monday, and then I turned up to the gig and they were like, there's no singer on tonight, mate. We've got the boxing on. It was a Amir Khan Kell Brook fight.
Right, yeah.
I was like, well, I've got it here. Fees agreed, so I'm getting paid. And then the manager come out and said, mate, I'm so sorry. He said, I completely forgot the boxing was on. I completely forgot we booked someone. Right. He said, so I will be getting your money. Like, and it was through an agency as well. So I rang the agent, like, explained what had happened. And he rang me and said, mate, I'm so sorry. It's their fault.
Yeah.
He said, did they own up to it? And the pub was like, yeah. He goes, well, he said, I've got your invoice anyway. So he said, we'll receive the money in the next couple of days, it'll take 5 days to come through to you. Funnily
Yeah,
enough,
fair
exactly
play.
that. It was done.
Yeah, fair play for you because it's not easy in them situations to have the balls to sort of go, well, I need my money, mate, because it can kick off, can't it? Like some of
Yeah.
these, you know. So sometimes I'm a bit like, oh shit, you know, you've got to do it, but
And I knew it was bank payment as well, which we're about to come on to. Like, receiving payment is probably one of the most awkward things to do. Do you find it awkward asking for your money at the end of the night still?
Not when it's pre-agreed and they know what your fee is and they go, how much, mate? And you go, oh, you know, this is the fee. It's not too bad, is it? I think there was an occasion a couple of weeks ago where they went, so it's this price, is it? I go, no, it's this price. And you feel a bit, and there's that awkward silence when they go, all right, yeah, no worries. And it's usually fine. What I really hate, which is I think what you're kind of alluding to, is when you get there and you think that you're being paid in cash or whatever, and they go, oh, we'll bank transfer you, mate. And that's okay when you know the venue owner, you know the landlord or whatever.
Yeah.
But if it's your first time at a gig, you don't know if you can trust them people to pay you when you've left the venue.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like technically there could be no evidence other than an advert. And who do you actually go to? So say like they block you as soon as you get home. They're not paying you. It's never happened, but I've known it to happen. What do you do? Like, what do? You know, unless you sign up to some sort of union or something that I imagine could help you out, get the police involved. Are they really going to help you in them situations? I don't really know.
Well, I'm with the Musicians Union, and they'll give you some representation, but I think the power of unions there isn't as good as it once was. So if you really want to go down the legal battle, most of these pubs have got a brewery behind them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're absolute powerhouses.
Yeah.
You're paying. I think I pay $18.99 a month to the Musicians Union just to get an idea and like get some back, and you get your PLI certificate in
Right,
there, and you get some equipment insurance for it as well. So that's covered every year for me. But it's like it's just someone to represent you because it's a lonely environment out there, and if someone does try something, it's so easy to be able to have that happen to you.
Yeah.
I think I've had that situation where you say you turn up and you think you're getting paid cash because it's not even been a question. And I've always been paid cash in this venue. It's a venue I love going to, by the way. But they changed their payment thing and I hadn't been told. So I said, all right, yeah, just come in to collect my money. And they were like, yeah, it's done by bank. I was like, I've not had that. Has it changed then recently?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it changed a few months ago. We've been paying by bank for a while. I said, right, well, last time I was here, it wasn't by bank. And there was a bit of a back and two. So it was like, yeah, but it's usually by bank. And I was like, yeah, but I've not been paid by bank before. And then there was an awkward silence. I was like, so what are we going to do about it then? But yeah, that venue were great. So it's not like a necessary, it was just a misunderstanding, that one. And they did pay me on the night for that one. And moving forward, I said, I'll do everything by bank. I
think if so, say from the get-go, there's a venue I go to and I know for a fact it's bank transfer every time. And the first time I felt a bit uncomfortable with it, but knowing that I can then trust the owner of that venue, it's like, well, you know that the next day you're going to have the payment. Whereas a couple of months ago, I went to a venue and the bar owner at the end of the night said, yeah, it's bank transfer, mate. And I hadn't been told this before. Left the venue and you're awkwardly packing up thinking, I'm leaving now, not knowing whether I'm actually going to get paid.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and I contact then the owner and, you know, they're not responding to you very quickly and you're thinking, shit. And that's all you think about then until you've been paid. You know, and you have something nagging at the back of your mind. That's always like that. Until you get paid,
I hate it.
It's horrible, isn't it? It's a horrible situation to be in. But sometimes it's unavoidable because if they say to you, nah, bank transfer, mate, and there's nothing you can do. You either kick up a fuss, but you only can kick up a fuss to a point. And you can demand money to as much as you want, but unless they give you that money, you know, and you've done the work, the ball's in their court then, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think like that's a question I now ask. Is it like, how are you doing payment? I think it's since you had your first one, like that's the only reason. Like the only reason I obviously didn't ask this venue is because I'd always been paid cash by them before. But any new venue now, I'm like, how are you doing payment?
Yeah.
If they ask for an invoice, generally I know it's probably bank transfer, so I always just ask to make sure. A lot of them still do cash, but you never know, do you?
No, it's scary. It is, and I'd just say with that, like, It's difficult because you don't want to be all. Even though this episode is about money, you don't want to be all money orientated when you're talking.
No.
Obviously, it is about money, but the venue wants to know that you're there for the right reasons to put on a performance, not just there to collect your money. So it's difficult to always keep talking about money in the negotiation phase. Like, you know, it's like, well, how are you paying me? And you know, and you know, this much, and you know, there's only so many questions that you like to ask. You know. And generally, once someone's booked you, they don't really want to be hassled then until the gig or until you speak to them at the gig or whatever. So you have to keep your questions to a minimum. But I'd just say, just ask how you do payment potentially when you're first in negotiations, so you know from the get go.
I have had it as well. There's a venue called Indigo in Leyland. And Danny, the owner there, sometimes if he hasn't had a lot of cash go through the till, he's like, right, just give us your bank details. And he just sends it you there.
Yeah.
So generally, I'll go. I won't ask for payment until I've packed everything up, and then I'll go back for my money, because it's focusing on one thing at a time, and then all you're focused on is just making sure they've got the payment right, making sure you've got your money, and like you can sort it then, because it's all you've got to think about.
Yeah.
And you know you're done, so it's the last thing you do before you leave the venue, so you know you've got your money.
Yeah. It's funny though, isn't it? Because money is always a sensitive topic, but also like before I became a musician and before I became self-employed, money was always the elephant in the room, in the sense that I didn't like to talk about money. I was always in shitty jobs where they pay you the bare minimum. It'd usually be on a 0-hour contract or some sort of like freelance basis where they just want to pay you the bare minimum or give you the bare minimum hours for most work. And it was always because I was quite young. I didn't want to talk about money and I felt uncomfortable approaching the boss or whoever else. And I do even still now, like when somebody maybe, could you give us a ring and give us a price? Picking up that phone sometimes is a bit daunting for me, because you're negotiating a price, you don't know how they're going to react to that price, you know, and there's a lot of that. But I think the more you do it, it's like when I go and collect my money at the end of the night, I don't really think about it now.
No.
Sometimes picking the phone up and negotiating a fee with a private party or a wedding is still a little bit daunting sometimes, and sometimes I might put it off for a couple of hours or whatever and get round to it, because sometimes it can be a bit awkward when someone goes, how much? Or, you know, that kind of thing. But, you know, it is what it is. But I think the more you do it, the more sort of comfortable you become with it, and the more you stick up for yourself as well in situations.
Yeah,
you know?
I think mine was a different thing. I used to undersell myself because I was like that desperate to gig. Because again, I had a full-time job, so it wasn't like I necessarily needed the money. But then like other musicians would be like, well, that's way too long. You should be on way more than that. And then once you start trying to up your fee, and when you're not even established, like, and you've already gone out for a certain amount, people don't want to pay you.
No.
I'd have people paying me extra to do an extra half an hour at the beginning and stuff like that. And sometimes that still happens, you know.
Yeah.
I've had customers in a bar go, like, we'll knock you 100 quid to stay on for another hour.
100 quid, that's fair. I had one time, there was someone that collected a hat or something, and we're getting people in the pub to throw things in this thing to just give me a bit extra, because she didn't think musicians were on enough money. I don't know where she'd got the stats from. I never told her what I was getting paid. I don't, you know, but she'd gone round people who weren't even really watching me and stuff, you know, like, and just going, throw it. And I had all these coins and shit, like, and I was like, it was really nice, but also I felt really awkward at the same time because I hadn't asked for that, and I felt like people were looking at me like, you know, you fucker, you know.
One of our gigs when Flash Flood started with Chris, one of our mates done a collection because he didn't think we were getting paid for the gig.
Right.
So all of a sudden he come up with all this money, and he just went, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
He said, "Well, you're not getting paid, are you?" He's like, "Yeah, we are." He's like, "All right." He's like, "Well, I've got it now." So he gave us this like half full of money. I'm like, what the hell?
He just has to individually give. Sorry, how much did you pay into the pot? £2.50. All right, 1 second.
I think he got all the lads to put a tenner in the freaking donation box or something.
It is nice when you get those little rewards that come out of nowhere, though. Like, you know.
But like, it was like, how do you go for it? Like, I don't want to charge too much. And sometimes you go in with that, like, you know, that question earlier, what's the budget? Well, what, like, you just pay what you think. Sometimes I do that even, and it's just like, it just leaves you so open, because a business owner, a clever business owner will go like, well, I'm going to get you for nothing.
Yeah, you're there to be shot at then, aren't you?
I think that is the thing. Like, beginning wise, you've got to really learn your value and stick by a rate. If you're going to go out for a rate, you stick by it. Obviously, if you have to lose 20 quid here and there, or it's at your discretion.
Yeah.
But
You say that though, but I've got to a point now where my Sunday fee I'll go out for no less than a certain price.
Yeah.
And a Saturday fee I'll go out for no less than a certain price. And I have had it in recent times where you know somebody's got in touch with me, and I think it was even an agency or something, I can't remember, and I've said, well, this is my price for a Sunday. They've gone, oh, we can't afford that, and I've gone, well, fine, that is what it is. I'm not going out for any less than that. And it's not diva-ish, it's just that's what I'm happy to go out for. And if you can't offer me that, then I won't do the gig. And I think you have got to be in a position of, I wouldn't say privilege for that, but you've got to be happy with the work that you've got coming in, maybe to be a bit like that.
Yeah.
Not in a cocky sense, but just more in like if you're desperate for a gig and someone, you know, you've not had a gig for 3 weeks for whatever reason, and somebody says that, it depends how much you want that gig then, doesn't it? So it's tricky. If you're not that bothered because you know you've got a couple of gigs coming up or whatever, your months are booked out, then I think you can be a little bit more
flexible, shall we say? Yeah.
Well, or not flexible, I suppose, or whatever, rigid, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is an element of sticking to a minimum fee that you're willing to take.
Yeah.
I like. Do you value yourself? Like, do you back yourself that much?
Yeah.
You know, we've seen like. I don't know about you, but before this podcast started, I'd never heard of Lee Richards, but he's got a full diary, so he must be doing something right. And like, you know, there's a few videos of his. He's like, he's doing good, but there's people out there that will probably that have broached that question before, don't like asking for money, and then are willing to drop the fee as soon as someone starts like kicking off. And I think you've got to back yourself to a degree.
Yeah.
And work out how much you're willing to drop, if you're going to drop at all.
I mean, I've had plenty of friendly transactions where it's just like, no, sorry, we can't offer that. And I go, oh, no worries then. You know, it's like, oh, thanks anyway, you know, and that's that. You don't get the gig, but it doesn't always have to be sort of like, oh, well, fuck you then, you greedy bastard, you know, sort of thing. It's, you know.
And most pubs will go, sorry, it's a shame, but like, we'd love you to come down, but we can't afford it right now, but we'll let you know in the future if that's going to happen. And some of them, do you know what? In all fairness, some of them I've actually started off lower and they've just upped my fee without even discussing it.
Yeah, right.
I've just said, like, I think like my normal fee was this. I've gone there, I've done the gig, everyone loved me. So the next time I went back, they've actually upped the fee.
Yeah. It's all very well and good travelling far and wide to gigs and becoming, you know, you're working with this agency, you're going here when you're going there. But I think something that is very valuable and maybe often overlooked is if you get the venues you're friendly with, that you go to 5-6 times a year, or it might even be that you have a monthly residency with them. If you can build them relationships up with people, they'll always sort you out.
Yeah.
You build that friendship where they're not going to let, if you do an extra half an hour because that's what people want, they will sort you out. And if you can meet those types of landlords, and I think you're doing all right, you know. And I think that is quite valuable, really. Like, it's great to go in new venues all the time and this and that, but if you can find those venues where, like I say, you build them friendships, I think you're always going to get sorted out financially as well.
Yeah, and also, like, you know, I get it from Craig and Amanda at Langston Yorks and Old Withy Trees and Bama Bridge. Like, if there's a private party or someone that they know is looking for, like, a singer to book, I always get recommended. They always put it to me, or depending what it is, they'll sometimes ask, I think his name's Owen, it's something Owen. Ellis Owen, his name is. Brilliant singer, by the way. Like, again, a human jukebox. People just shout requests at him and he just plays it. Yeah. And he nails it. He nails every song. He gets the right key for his voice. He's just got this really elegant voice. So it's either me or him that get recommended because we were doing their monthly residencies. Yeah. But I think, you've got to have that backbone with it. Like, decide how desperate you are for the gig, or like whether it's here or there, whether you take it, and whether you like, you know, I don't think you should take the mick, but you should certainly be demanding what you think you value yourself at.
Obviously, as long as it aligns with the venue, which you know, you're not saying like, oh, well, I think I'm worth this, so, and it's just it's more just, you know, it might be that you've had to up your gig fee, you know, after a year because of the increase in sort of cost of living and all that kind of thing.
Demand even sometimes.
Yeah, so it might just be a case of, well, now my fee's not this, it's this year. It's not. It might only be a 10 or 20 quid different, but but it just depends on the relationship you have with that person, how desperate you are to do the gig. There's a lot of different factors that come into it.
Yeah.
If they're approaching you, are you approaching them? It all plays into it.
And again, we're not going to tell you how much to charge because it's just different. Everyone's situation's different. If you're full time, then you might want to charge a bit more, but like do something that you think you can live comfortably on.
Yeah.
But just charge what you feel comfortable charging, and what would actually what more than anything what you need to survive, I suppose, or need to buy the food, pay the bills, whatever.
Well, I think you see it on Northwest bands a lot, don't you? Where people go, oh, you shouldn't be charging this amount because it brings down the whole market and it affects my gig and it affects your gig. I think that's bullshit to a degree. I think if you're a nice enough, reputable person, you're going out, doing what's expected of you at the gig, the audience enjoy you, then it doesn't matter if somebody else is going out for far less than you. It's not. As long as you're doing your bit, and it's not just whether you're good enough, it's whether you're sort of approachable enough, whether you're, a nice person, but you're professional is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Like, if you're doing all the right things, you'll get the fee that you deserve, like, within that market. If someone wants to go out for less, then until they start to rethink things, that's their problem. Like, I don't think it affects you, really.
No, I think there's certain areas, I know Mike, who's just joined I've set up a band for Defined By, and Mike, one of the guitarists, has said, like, oh, you wouldn't get, like, what do you charge? What do you charge as a band? About asking about Flash Floods, and I told him the price. He said, oh, you wouldn't get that in Lancaster, because in Lancaster, like, all the band, they're constantly packed with bands. They've got a list of bands, almost like a waiting list to get in and play. So every band is willing to take less to play in these venues.
Yeah.
So
it's funny, isn't it? These little catchment areas. Like, I had some brief experiences in Liverpool, like by the docks. I can't remember what it's actually called. It's like a big square of musical bars, but they were wanting to pay far less than even round here. And it's like, I've got to drive to Liverpool, I've got to pay for some parking, I've got to carry my gear across the docks. And they were like, nah, I can't do it. And they were just like, well, that's the price we pay. And it was like, well, I won't do it then. Do you know what I mean? Like,
you're best off getting someone local. I think there's a guy I know in one of the schools I teach at called Les, and he's been in a band with recently with the bassist from Slade. He'll be a good one to get on, actually. He got offered a gig in Bristol, and they said, how much would you charge to come down? And he's like, well, it's going to be £400 plus expenses.
Yeah.
So, like, he needed a hotel for the night because there's no way he's driving like 5 hours to Bristol or whatever it is. And they said, oh, what? We can't pay that. We could only afford 150. And he's like, well, you're best off getting a local lad.
Yeah.
He's like, but we want you. He said, well, pay the money then. And he's like, we can't.
Yeah.
So he ended up going around in circles with these people. But like,
if somebody wants you enough, then as long as you're reasonable, like, and that is reasonable, the story that you've just told me there.
Yeah.
He has to put himself up, he has to travel. Like you'll meet in the middle somewhere. Yeah. Either they'll think you're not quite worth it, or you'll think it's not worth it, but it'll get resolved. If they really, really want you, then you have to know it has to be worth it for you.
And I think sometimes it's got to work the other way as well. If they've approached you and like, you think, then they seem like nice people, it looks like a nice pub, and you think, actually, I wouldn't mind playing there. Like, are you willing to be a bit flexible?
Yeah.
But like, this is going to have to increase over time. And I think most people, if you did the first couple of gigs for most good businesses, like with good owners, would probably accept that, and they probably would go out with their budget if they thought you were worth it.
Yeah. It's a strange industry, and it's a case-by-case basis. It really is. And I don't want it to come across as if we're sat on some sort of ivory tower sort of going, this is my fee, I'm a very reasonable person in life. And I understand how the whole thing works. And if I can be flexible, but I can only be flexible to a point, because it's a job like any other job. You're not going to go and work for Amazon or whoever if they're only offering you a certain amount. You can only do a certain amount of goodwill. Maybe Amazon's a shocking example, but
Yeah.
you know, you're not going to go and work for some company unless it's right for you.
Yeah.
Like, unless, you know, it's the same as anything else, isn't it? And I think some people forget sometimes that this is a job in an industry just like any other, really. You know?
Yeah, and I think I think Shelley said people want art, but no one's willing to pay for it. That's true to an extent. I think there are people that are willing to pay for it and do appreciate it. So we're not even slagging off venues. We're not slagging off anyone for lowering the fees if that's what you want to do and that's your prerogative and that's what you need to survive each month, and that's up to you.
Yeah.
It's not up to anyone to decide how much you should be getting paid. You've got your fee and you do what's best for you at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think it's worth obviously touching on that with what Shelley said as well. I found it shocking when I first came into music, how like I remember one of my friends saying, you know, I'm doing original music, they just don't pay, and I was like, what? You know, I couldn't believe it at the start. And it's weird, isn't it, how some things are just the way they are. And it just seems that original music, it's like, it's just the way that it is. You just don't really get paid for that unless you're at obviously a very high level.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like that with athletics for me, though. Athletics has never really been a paid sport. You have to accept that for the love of it. That's the compromise, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you're doing your own tunes and or you know, competing to win a race or whatever it is. Some things, it just seems to be that it's the way it is.
Yeah,
and it's sad, isn't it? But
I think it is because, like, you know, there's that old saying: when a company fails, like generally it's because there's too many people with the attitude of, well, that's the way it's always been, and they don't keep up with the modern world.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like, if you've got that attitude, then like a lot of industries will suffer. But with music, it seems to be like they used to pay you quite a lot to do things, and they were paying for original music. But now it's sort of like it's heavily dictated by what comes in through the door. Because these music venues have a lot more licensing, so I think that's why they can get away with it a bit more. Because
we're going on a bit of a tangent, but I feel like the tolerance surely. I mean, I'm not an original artist, so it obviously it takes a lot for me to say this because it doesn't help me, I suppose. But I just feel like if in a pub, if you get an original artist on and you know, it's up to the audiences to come, and it's like, surely it can still be really enjoyable even if you don't know the songs and stuff, to connect with an artist that's writing their own stuff. And all it needs is people to come to the venue. So say like Exeter Mills down the road, right? If they booked an original singer and people turned up like they do on a standard Saturday night to watch music, but they were just watching original music, the whole thing could work. Yeah. That's how easy it is.
And you're getting four acts. You're getting four acts doing a half an hour to 45-minute set.
Yeah, but even if you just got one act on, even if you just had you doing your tunes, like, and the same people came, you can still get paid. Yeah. And original music is getting. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's simple, but it's not, because obviously there is a reason why your local pubs aren't booking original music, because obviously not as many people turn up in most cases, and that's why you can't. But do you get what I mean? It's as simple as come and watch and support some original music.
Yeah,
you know?
I think people's attitudes have to change towards it. And if the pubs were like sort of willing to take that risk, because places were back in the day, if people were more willing to take that risk and like go, I'm not sure I'm going to enjoy that, but I'm going to go anyway and try it out. And if it works, it works.
Yeah.
Then you'd get more originals acts getting paid.
I suppose it's the same though, isn't it? As saying like, I watch the Premier League week in, week out, but now this week I'm going to watch the French League. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like you're taking a punt on something almost, and people have probably got less time than ever now, haven't they? With obviously the digital age and everything's. People's lives are busier than ever, so they almost don't want to take the risk on something on a Saturday night.
No,
they want to know what they're getting. Like, they want the standards, don't they?
And life obviously has got more expensive. So if they're going to spend the hard-earned money, they want to spend it on something they know. And generally, it's a mate that turns up to a gig, or like a group of mates that turn up to a gig. And you know, I'm quite lucky that I've probably got a group of mates now that it could go to that. So. It's one of them. Like, you've got to have the people to support it to get the money. But again, it's what your prerogative is.
I know, it's tricky. I mean, I know we're different because we're musical, but if someone tell me, go and watch him, he's class, I'd go and watch them at a pub, original or thing, you know. But I suppose we're musically inclined, so it's not the same for everyone's thinking, is it? But, you know.
No, definitely not.
Right,
So,
should we take a quick break there and then move on to our... It's turned into a full podcast.
I don't even think we've got anything else to discuss,
well,
mate.
deposits, potentially.
Oh, deposits.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. That's an off-the-cuff one.
Yeah.
Left field. Like
field.
it.
Right, we'll see you shortly. We'd like to thank you for making it to the end of our episode. If you haven't checked out our first episode from the payment series, you can find it here. And if you would like to see the next and final installment, part 3 of the payment series, if it's available, it will be available here. We hope you enjoy the series. Go and check out all of our other episodes with guests from the local music scene as well. And we'll see you for the next one.